We get some Division I coaches that grace us and give us their time. And then in doing that, we've also tapped into our Jersey roots. And so when we can connect with Jersey people, be it wrestling or cross country and track and field, we like to do that. And Zach's a good friend of ours. His gym is not too far from where we grew up in Point Pleasant. And so when he made the connection, we were like, heck yeah, let's do it. So here we are. We're stoked to have you, and we're excited to have a good conversation. Usually these New Jersey roots links have great conversation, so we're excited for it.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here, you are there, and you are now rocking with the best. We greatly appreciate you tuning in for another episode of Airey Bros Radio. Tonight we're stepping back onto the mat to go belly to belly with a man who's done it all on the mat and is now changing the game in the lab and in Stillwater, Oklahoma. But before we get rolling, y'all know the drill. Hammer that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to Airey Bros on YouTube. Drop a comment. Every review, and share helps us grow and give back to the sports we love. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Tonight's guest, Frank Perrelli, is joining us. He's a New Jersey native who climbed to the top of the NCAA wrestling and freestyle competition and is now bringing cutting-edge performance science to athletes through the Treigning Lab. He is a New Jersey high school state champion, an NCAA All-American at Cornell in 2012, a two-time EIWA champion, a university national champion, a four-time U.S. senior All-American, and a U.S. Open runner-up. He's a former Spartan Combat RTC head coach with 15 world team bursts, multiple UWW world medals. Founder of the Treigning Lab Oklahoma, partnering with Coach Sam Calavitta to expand the East to the Midwest Performance Network. Frank has carried his mat side grind into the performance lab, blending wrestling roots, science, and innovation to elevate athletes at every level. Without further ado, it is an honor and pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Frank Perrelli, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I didn't even know half that stuff. That's a good little recap. I like that.
Yeah, Jimmy's a good stat finder. He gets on that. So we're excited to chat with you. And again, it's always a pleasure when we can connect with people from New Jersey. These conversations usually pretty fun. So without getting too far ahead of ourselves, anywhere you would like our fans to go find you, social media, anything you might have coming up, camps, clinics, anything along those lines, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to find me is Treigning Lab _OK, and that's TREIGNING_OK on Instagram, and then you can find any links to websites or whatever on there. It's probably the easiest spot.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes for you as well. And so, Frank, we want to kick this off. This is probably going to be the most important question I'm going to ask you all evening. I think I know the answer to this, but I never know. I know you spent some summers at the Jersey Shore. Is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
It's Taylor ham. I'm a North Jersey guy. I spent a lot of summers at the Jersey Shore, but it's Taylor ham all the way.
All right, yeah. Those North Jersey Ivy League guys, Jim, they're team Taylor ham 100%.
Through and through. There's not one chink in that link.
No way. Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. You got to go there all day.
All right. So have you been able to find some Taylor ham down there in Stillwater?
No, unfortunately, I don't partake in Taylor ham any longer. I'm more focused on got my Treigning Lab hat on, and I'm got to live it. So no more Taylor ham for me. Although I do remember the taste, and it's really good.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Jim.
So Frank, we like to have a little bit of through lines with all our guests, and when we were talking, when Zach linked us up, I mentioned you and I wrestled together at Sure Thing back in the summer before you went to Delbarton. You were, I believe your family had a house in La Valette.
Yep.
And I pretty much got to follow you come up from being a freshman and going to Delbarton and not being sure about it and having to wrestle with Mike Gray every day, and then watch you win a state title, and then also have an awesome career at Cornell. And then, following you from afar, I also saw you were working with Coach Sam Calavitta. Mm-hmm. And my senior year in high school, I went out to the Internal Warrior Wrestling Camp out in Treigning, Montana. And then I went back when I was in junior college and was a counselor there. So I know Coach Cal very well. He's had a deep impact on my life. So stoked to reconnect with you and pick your brain about working with Coach Cal. And yeah, it's just awesome to have you on and chat with you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I do remember after we first started talking, I went and looked you up, and I recognized your face right away. And I was like, oh yeah, I definitely remember. Shout out to Vinny at Sure Thing having me in the summers. He didn't care. He was really cool about that. And yeah, my family had that house in Lavalette. My grandma, my parents would drop me off, and they made sure I was getting my workouts in. So my grandma would drive me to Wall Township, where the club was, and get our workouts in, get home, and go back to the beach. So it was all good.
Yeah, gotta respect the kid on summer vacation getting his workouts in.
Yeah.
What's your origin story with wrestling? How'd you start wrestling?
Honestly, I just brought a flyer home from school. I think pretty typical. I did think it was WWF. I found out pretty quickly it wasn't. I think that's just about every young kid that starts has a story. My dad went to Delbarton. He wrestled there. So not like at the time, I think I was 5 years old. So I was in kindergarten, and, it was, I think, a way for me to get out energy. It didn't matter that I was always a really small kid. I wrestled 35 pounds in kindergarten, so playing football and baseball, you're always like the tiny kid, and wrestling, you're wrestling other small kids too. So it made it easy to be competitive and get in there. And, I think I just naturally like to kind of battle and fight. So that was an easy outlet.
So when you were at Delbarton, we had Coach Stoll. He was your coach while you were there?
He came in for 2 years, my junior and senior year. Okay. I had some exposure to him. He was a coach at St. Joe's in my freshman and sophomore year. And Mike Gray and I both trained with Pete Gonzalez privately. And, he introduced us to Brian. And then Delbarton was really good about it when our head coach moved on and we were looking for a new head coach. They actually had us give some input, and we had a couple different choices. I don't think we made the final decision, but we definitely pushed for Stoll. We were really fond of him, and obviously it's worked out great, and he's done an amazing job with the program.
What's the experience like as a high schooler going to a school like Delbarton? Jimmy and I are public school kids, and we know some people that went to CBA. We train with the CBA kids, but we never had that kind of experience. What's the Delbarton experience like?
Man, I got to think back. No, it was a while ago though. But so my experience was a little different. I was the only one from Warren County. So I grew up in Hackettstown, New Jersey, which is about 10 minutes from Blair, which I always wanted to go to Blair growing up. And, and then as I got closer to that high school age, I was applying to schools my 8th grade year, which is weird to think about that you're, kind of going through a little bit of like a college experience or a senior in high school experience as an 8th grader. So I applied to a couple of different schools. My brother went to Pope John. So I think I applied to Pope John and Blair and Delbarton and maybe like one other school. I don't know. And, I got waitlisted at Blair. And I got into Delbarton, and I was really close with Buxton even at the time. His son Tony was a year younger than me, so we always went into the room and trained there, even as a little kid. And I would wrestle with Tony during the high school practices. So when Buxton found out that I didn't get in, I think he kind of threw a fit, and I ended up getting in. And I was like, well, no, screw that. I'm going to Delbarton. My stubborn Jersey Italian ways kind of prevailed, and it worked out for the best. I think, I went to Delbarton, got to, kind of follow Mike's path, so to speak. Obviously I didn't win 4 state titles, but I think he definitely brought me along, and I got connected with the Gray family. But so it was a little different of an experience being from Warren County. I was the only kid that went to Delbarton from Warren County. So I would catch the train every morning in Hackettstown at, I think it was like 6:05 or something like that. My mom would drop me off at the train station, and it'd take me about an hour and 10 minutes to get to school, which, sounds like a lot, but it was awesome. I actually really enjoyed it. I was, traveling. It kind of made me feel a little grown up. I was traveling with people going to work, and I don't know, so it kind of made me mature a little bit. And I either got to sleep or I would do my homework in the morning, just get it done. And then another 10, 15 minute bus ride from the train station to Delbarton. So I was moving from like 5:45 all the way to, get to school at like 8:15, get ready to go. So, and then it being all boys was a little bit of a culture shock at first. I was a public school kid growing up, and then you get really, you're a little nervous, and then you get used to it. It actually is a lot easier, especially being in Oklahoma now. When people find out that I went to an all boys Catholic high school, they're like, what the heck? It's so for them. But it made it really easy. You didn't have to worry about what you look like. You're not trying to impress anybody. You just kind of focused on what you had to focus. There's, no girls that you're worried about impressing in school. You just kind of focus on getting your work done, playing sports, and kind of just rinse and repeat type of thing.
You were on the ground level of Coach Stoll being at Delbarton and growing into the dynasty. What do you think some of the key factors are for the success there?
Stoll only cares about the kids. He does not care about, he has no ego. He doesn't want any accolades. He's for the kids. And that's really all he cares about. It's cool too. So, my senior level career, I was competing in, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I was living in Bethlehem and competing for the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club. And, Rich Tavoso, who's a, Delbarton father, and Stoll and Guy Russo kind of reached out to me when they found out I was moving back, and they're like, hey, come help out. So for a couple of years, I got to, drive into Delbarton, and I would help run practice like once or twice a week during the season and do some private lessons with kids, and then help coach certain things. And so I got to see it from both perspectives, where, Stoll was my coach, and then I'm kind of like alongside of him coaching too. And, I had a ton of respect for him when I was one of his athletes, and, lovable guy, super easy to get along with, everybody's best friend, does, very selfless. And then as a coach, I saw it taken to, even further path, and I got to see it from a different light. So it was really cool. And, he's a great guy. He's done an amazing thing with that program, and everything's for the kids, and he just does whatever he can, no matter what it takes. So it's really awesome thing to see. And, I think the Delbarton community should be really grateful to have him. He's done an amazing job. And Guy too. I mean, I can't forget about Guy. I love Guy. He's like, a second father to me. He's been awesome. So Guy's always kind of behind Stoll. Stoll gets, like I said, Stoll doesn't want the limelight or whatever. Guy's even more so in the shadows, and he's like, he helps out a ton, and it couldn't have run without Guy either.
And so from one great coach to another great coach, you got to go to Cornell. Yeah. We've had Coach Koll on twice. What was that experience like for you?
So I kind of we've been talking about this, a couple of my buddies, and, we've been talking about the dynamic that Coach Koll brought. And I think one of the reasons that I even ended up at Cornell was because, it was so easy to be yourself, and to, we were very serious when we were in the room and focused and training. And then, it was joking and laughing and, having a good time when we weren't. We knew when to turn it on, we knew when to turn it off. And I think Coach Koll was a master at that. I had some other options school-wise. And what really drew me to Cornell not only was the team when I took my official visit, and I took an unofficial. And then obviously, as I was making my decision, Mike Gray decided he was going there as well. He did their gray shirt program. And so that made it easy. But Coach Koll definitely, made it really fun. And that's what I wanted. I felt like when I wrestled best and competed best, and just everything in general, life was really good and going really well and smooth when I was having fun. And that's what I kind of drew me to Cornell and Coach Koll in particular.
And I imagine the academics at Delbarton prepare you for an Ivy League education, but for, again, public school kids, we hear of the Ivy Leagues. Is it as difficult as people make it sound?
It's definitely tough. And kind of the way I can equate Cornell, and having been to some other schools after my career, you know, bounced around a little different spots training. Cornell is really sink or swim. Either you get it done or you don't. And, you know, so Delbarton definitely helped me prepare and figure that out of like, you know, where my time is best, you know, spent. And maybe it's not reading the entire textbook or doing all the homework. It's, you know, picking and choosing and knowing what I need to get done and maybe what's not so important. I'm probably not going to get like an A+ or 100% on everything, but I'll get, you know, a decent score and get the majority, kind of like the 80-20 rule a little bit. So it definitely helped me prepare. And, you know, Cornell is like, you know, they'll provide you tutors and stuff, but they're not going to hold your hand and walk you to class, make sure you're where you're supposed to be. It's like, no, you're an adult, you're here. And, you know, unfortunately for me, it took me about maybe a half a semester, 3/4 semester to really figure that out. You know, I didn't have an amazing GPA my freshman year, or first semester, I should say. And then, you know, it was like, okay, I figured out towards the end of that semester. And then from there, it was like, I kind of knew what I had to do. So it took me a little longer and than I think it should have, but it worked out fine, right? No one remembers their GPA or anything.
Yeah, they don't put that on your diploma.
Yeah, no, it doesn't come in. C's get degrees.
That's it.
But
last person in med school is still a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, and then I think it prepares you for life and figuring that stuff out and you know, trying to be efficient with your time and not kind of wasting, you know, 80% of your time on the 20% of details that aren't going to be super, super important.
Yeah.
Frank, I know we're doing the gauntlet of talk about this awesome person you worked with, talk about this awesome person you worked with, but you went to high school with Mike Ray, and then you went to college with Mike Ray, and then you were coaching with him up at Cornell. Talk about the impact Mike's had on you.
I don't even know where to start, to be honest. You know, he kind of took me in as a brother right from my freshman year. I had never met him before I went to Delbarton. So we kind of hit it off. We had very similar goals. We were interested in the same stuff, which was pretty much just wrestling. So that first year I didn't do so great. And I kind of was like, hey, I'm just going to attach myself to this guy. And I think I probably slept at the Gray's house more times than I did at my parents' house, you know, that first summer. And we were just training and going here and there, Blair, and doing private lessons. He had a mat in his basement and, you know, working out, doing a bunch of stuff, climbing the rope in the back and all over the place. So I think I figured it out pretty quick that he's done things that I want to do. So I'm just going to mirror whatever he does. And then obviously, you know, we ended up together in college. We were roommates for 4 years. And then, you know, I kind of did my own thing and competed, traveled around the country a little bit, and then it made my way back to Cornell. And he brought me in as the RTC coach when he first got that head job. And, you know, it was awesome. We had a really good dynamic. It was, you know, me, Nick Wisdowski, Donnie Vincent, and Kellen Russell. And it was like, you know, we all got brought back together. I hadn't known Donnie so well. I knew Gwiz from the circuit. Kellen went to Blair, so we were around him all the time since I was like in like 5th grade. So it was just a lot of fun. The dynamic was really great. And you know, Mike's done an amazing job. He's won 2 team trophies in the 4 years that he's, you know, been at the helm. So a 2nd and 3rd place, which I was lucky enough to kind of be a part of. You know, I was in practice every day and then obviously focusing on the freestyle guys, the senior levels as well. And then, you know, the whole team would jump into RTC practice as soon as the season was over, all through the summer. So it was a lot of fun. You know, I learned a ton from him. I really am truly grateful for him taking me in and kind of just treating me as a brother. And yeah, can't really say enough about what Mike has done for my trajectory.
So I know you were training at the senior level for a while. Mm-hmm. And now you're a strength and conditioning coach, and you were the ROTC coach. RTC coach, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's always confusing.
Thinking of ROH from last night.
Yeah, well, too many. Is it acronyms? Is that? Yeah, too many acronyms. So I say all that to say, did you always know you wanted to coach? Did you always know you wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach?
Coming out of college, I did. Coach Koll we would do this, we would do our goal sheets every year. And I actually was just talking about this with a buddy. In my goal sheet one year, I think he just kind of stopped the meeting and asked me what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I want to just keep competing. And then I want to coach. And he kind of sat me down and was like, okay, if you're serious about this, like we'll kind of, tailor your trajectory towards coaching and stuff. So we had Finger Lakes Wrestling Club. Not only at the time, that's what the RTC was called. And there was also a, kids club program. So I think he didn't make me, but he suggested I go in like, once or twice a week and help out with that. And I really enjoyed it, helping out the little kids. And I really felt like when I was teaching younger kids, especially where you really have to break it down and think about the technique or, mindset, especially, you really learned it better yourself. And it kind of like hammered it in when you're doing it yourself of, okay, I'm not just drilling, I'm like actually following the steps that I just taught this little kid, last night. So it really helped me, I think, as a competitor to get that little bit of coaching experience. And then as I transitioned to senior level, I was the gray shirt coach at Cornell for the year and a half that I was there after I graduated, which again, I think helped a lot. I learned a lot. And then every other place I went, I kind of just would pick like a guy or two that, I've decided whether I liked them or they were my training partner. And I kind of got some benefit out of helping them out and getting them better to then obviously sharpen me. I always just really enjoyed that aspect of being able to connect with a guy, not only like, okay, yeah, we're going to talk about technique and break it down and then maybe some mindset stuff, but then being able to connect with them off the mat and outside the room as well. I really, really enjoyed that. So now that I'm kind of out of wrestling, so to speak, at least at the senior level and college level, I do have some guys, local guys that I work with. I really enjoyed doing that. And, but then working with them and all sports now too, which is really cool transition of working with the strength and conditioning and the nutrition, the full aspect of that Coach Cal has set up with the training lab. It's been a really cool transition for me.
So you bring up Coach Cal. Obviously, I know Coach Cal. Rich knows Coach Cal, but he's kind of mysterious. Doesn't do many interviews. Everyone hears about the garage. Everyone hears about the experiences and the hair follicle tests and all that stuff. Where does that come into play with Frank Perrelli?
So I guess what I'll do is I'll just kind of start of how I met Coach Cal. So actually, it's funny. I was roommates with David Taylor. I want to say it was like 2013 at the OTC. And, I was like super into the nutrition and trying to like dial things in. And at the time I was like fully bought in on the maximized living portion of stuff, which I don't know if you know their approach. It's kind of similar to Coach Cal, right? They're whole foods, holistic, nutritional. It's like a chiropractic group that also focuses on nutrition. And they were helping a USA Wrestling at the time. So a guy named Fred Rossi, he's a Jersey guy also, moved to Florida, started this thing called Maximize Living. So I was like super into the nutrition and stuff. And David's my roommate, sees me eating healthy and like avoiding stuff. And he's eating like candy bars and things like that. And kind of like poking fun at me a little bit. And I'm like, oh, whatever. And then, I get to be better friends with David after he kind of graduates college and is on the senior level. And then we're roommates again. And I think it was like either 2017 or 2018. And he's like, hey, you were right about all that nutrition stuff. He's like, I finally, I'm working with this guy now out in California. And, I realized how important it is and all this stuff. And he's like, you should connect with them. Because at the time I was just kind of trying to train myself in terms of strength and conditioning. And I had, poked around a little bit and done research with Charles Poliquin and a bunch of different pathways down that end. And so I, just was like, screw it, I'm going to try it. I messaged the Training Lab account on Instagram and didn't hear back for like a month. And then, all of a sudden I get like a phone call from California. I'm like, what the heck? So I pick it up, and it's Coach Cal. I guess he had like taken a couple weeks and kind of vetted me and figured out what kind of person I am. And he's like, hey, if you want to come out and train, then you can be at my house at this date. And it was like a day or two after the US Open. So it was in like April. And I basically just switched my return flight to go to California after the US Open one year, and went out and trained with him. He was like, hey, you can have this room. This is my daughter's room. You can have a room. Like, I just like slept in her bed and woke up, trained with him, did all my testing and stuff. And I was like, my mind was blown. So I kind of completely bought into that. That's kind of how I am. I'm just like 100% or nothing at all. So I bought in. I was hook, line, and sinker, and I really believed all the stuff. I felt all of the changes, and people around me kind of saw how passionate I was about it, and that's really how we got started. I got started with Coach Cal and Monica, and he always says that the training lab is a family, and I truly believe that. Right, I take that seriously, with my family, and then now the athletes that I bring in as well, and I try to treat them just like he treated me and his wife Monica, and he has 9 kids, and met all the kids, and they're awesome people. So it's kind of just something I like to emulate, not only on like the business side of things and obviously the strength and conditioning, all that training stuff, but just as a family and a man, someone that I really look up to and has become a huge mentor in my life.
So talking about the nutrition, Jimmy and I talk about nutrition all the time. We were actually talking about it before we jumped on here, and you mentioned you don't do the Taylor ham anymore. Is that something that you were doing back then when you first met David Taylor, or is that something fairly more recently?
No, I think even back then, I think, I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and he was like, what kind of made you really dive into the nutrition stuff? And I went and I watched a movie in 2008. It was my freshman year. I had just broken my ankle. My season was over. And I watched a movie called Food Inc. I remember I went to Goldwyn Smith Hall and we watched it, and it kind of changed how I looked at everything. It kind of examined, it's that, I'm sure who he is, it's Joel Salatin. Yeah. He was like one of the main guys in the movie, and talked about, the food industry and how crazy it was. And it opened my eyes. And then from there, it was like a huge rabbit hole. So kind of went down that path, so I really started kind of my whole college career, but I would, go to Jersey in summers, and we'd be eating Taylor ham and stuff. And then once I met Coach Cal, I kind of stopped dabbling. I should say I still do cheat every once in a while, but sure. It's been a while since I've had Taylor ham. I may have to make an exception here pretty soon.
When you're in Lavalette, do you call it Taylor ham still?
Oh yeah, I gotta stay true to it. That's all right. They have enough North Jersey people down there that they know what's going on.
But you also mentioned Charles Polk, and he's someone, rest in peace, that Jimmy and I hold in high regard. We've dug into him a lot and follow a lot of his practices. With the athletes that you're working with, you mentioned it's not just wrestlers at this point.
No, it's not. I have a couple baseball player, soccer player, MMA fighters. I actually work with Mike's younger brother, Mark, who's a professional fighter right now. Done a couple weight cuts with him, which have gone really well. Tough. He's tough as nails, but we made the weight and he felt good and was able to fight. I actually just talked to a guy today who's wants to fly out and get all his testing done. He's like an ex-football player. He's 40 years old. He's a businessman. And, so I'm, interested in working with all sports. Obviously the training lab was kind of born out of combat sports, but we've been able to transition that into, all sports and health in general and longevity, and kind of can tailor it to whatever you want it to be, in terms of, whether it's performance or health or whatever. It starts with, like, Jimmy was talking about with the HTMA, that hair tissue mineral analysis test, right? And starting with the cell, and we'll do blood work and do labs and figure out what's going on inside the cell. And then we work outwards, as opposed to, a lot of just strength and conditioning coaches, not throwing shade at anybody, but, they just want to get you in the gym and try to get you stronger, which is great. But, if you're there's a lot going inside your body that you need to take care of as well. So we want to make sure we're touching every facet of that.
You have any interest in working with an old ultra marathoner?
Hell yeah. Come on. Let's do it.
Can you dive into that test a little more? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who think they're doing the right things, but they're probably fighting against themselves and don't even realize it.
Yeah. So, initially when we get people in, we'll kind of, do a few different tests on them. One of the tests, we use a bioimpedance scale, and we'll just get, your regular metrics, body fat percentage, skeletal muscle mass, hydration, extracellular, intracellular, things like that, just, overall weight, BMI, which we don't really take into account too much, but a bunch of different metrics. We'll do your, basically get your resting metabolic rate, and we'll do VO2 max. And then from there, we'll kind of work backwards and go in more like hair analysis. And then based on those results, we can order blood work that we deem necessary, and just look at those, results, and try to look at a person as a whole, instead of being like, okay, well, this says you need more calcium, so you're going to take calcium pill. Like that's not how we operate. We always try to, treat everything holistically with real foods, and then kind of supplement as necessary. But everything's done with whole foods, with nutrition. Organic is kind of what we preach, and just getting back to, nature, or, how things were done in the past, and without, everything being screwed up by the food industry or whatever it is, chemicals and everything. So we just want it to be as natural as possible, and let the body, kind of perform as, God intended.
So doing these tests with some of these athletes, obviously you're working with some high caliber athletes. Do you ever have someone come in who's just nailing it?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of aspects, some of these guys are, but there's always, that room for improvement. And you'd be surprised too, where some of the guys, where they're nailing it in competitions, come in and they're like, we can look, be like, well, you're already like, the top 2% of the elite level, right? So you're like world medalist, whatever, NCAA champ, and then we look and like, well, you have this much room to improve still. You're like 50% of your potential right now in these categories. Not saying, right, that his wrestling is, he's got 50% more, potential in wrestling or whatever sport it may be, but in certain areas, we can find big improvements in a lot of different aspects. So we always, we're always able to improve things. And, it's really hard to improve on things when you're not measuring. So we really measure everything, and we get very minute and granular with our measurements, and we want to track every little piece of progress, and know that, we're always trending upwards, and whatever it may be, whether it's, recovery, or, anything really. And we don't necessarily have to let the athlete know about all of that stuff. And as a trainer, that's kind of more of my job, to take in all that information, figure out what's going on, figure out where we can improve in certain things, kind of just let them do their thing, send them the plan, maybe suggest some tweaks here and there, and then kind of watch that progress take off. It's a really fun perspective to be on this end of it.
Obviously the tests are essential, but do you find watching NCAAs, watching the Olympic trials, you can do an eyeball test of an athlete and kind of see what they're missing?
I think so. A lot of the times, right, it's like, for instance, just thinking about a couple people, and I'm not going to name any names, but you can see maybe at the end of the match, there's like their eyes get big and they're getting nervous. And it's like, okay, I know they're not like nervous about this wrestling match. They're 6 minutes in, they're not like, they don't still have those butterflies, or kind of, blinded by the lights, so to speak. But you can tell when they start to feel, whether it's being tired or, overpowered in a certain way. So you can kind of tell. And obviously, me being so immersed in it for so long, I think I competed from the time I was 5 until I was 32. I kind of have, I think, a little bit of like a sixth sense for it almost, where you can see guys like, oh boy, here we go. Like he's in trouble. And, he may still be winning a match or a fight or whatever it is. And you're like, uh-oh, here it comes. And then, more often than not, you can kind of pick it out.
Are there certain tests that consistently are the ones that are exposing the biggest gaps?
Yeah, I think we get a lot of data from our VO2 max. Not only are we getting just obviously the raw data, the VO2, number, but we're seeing a lot of things with like, your breathing rate, and we can make a lot of deductions once we see all of that data, combined in one spot. So, one athlete I'm thinking about in particular, we saw that, as his heart rate started to go up, we were looking at a chart, and his breathing rate was like all over the place, and his heart rate spiked. So we kind of figured out that, his diaphragm was weak. So we used one of the tools that we use, and we have a specific protocol for it, where we were able to help him strengthen his diaphragm. And then when we, retest, we were able to see, and that trend line was much more steady. And then we didn't get that big spike in heart rate. And then obviously, we were able to track everything else, and everything else improved as well, along with that one little piece of, him basically not being able to control his breathing, and then everything else kind of going haywire.
And are you doing the VO2 max? Are you doing it on a treadmill or on a bike?
We preferably try to do on a treadmill. We find we get much more accurate data. And when we do it on a bike, it's really difficult because, most of us aren't cyclists, so your legs kind of give out before your lungs. So we find that on a treadmill, we get more of an accurate look at exactly what's happening there.
And from a wrestler's perspective, what's the highest VO2 max you've seen from a wrestler?
Mid 70s. Coach Cal has stories of guys in the mid 80s, which is pretty high VO2. And again, right, I'm not so worried about whose VO2 max is higher than the other. It's all just a measure of how we're progressing. It's not so much like, and of course, right, we want to compete at everything as wrestlers and as athletes. But at the end of the day, you kind of poke fun at your buddy if your VO2 max is higher than him, but it really doesn't matter. It's just a measure against yourself at the end of the day.
Sure.
Frank, we all know wrestling is it's like a dirty subject, or sorry, not wrestling. Diet is a dirty subject when it comes to wrestling, because none of us do it right. We're all raised the wrong way in nutrition. How much do you find that is more of a factor than what's going on the mat or on the scale? Is, hey, your diet is just a mess.
Yeah, I think it plays a huge factor, especially at the high school and a lot of times college ages. Senior level, I would say it's rare to be like, oh my God, that guy had a terrible weight cut. Usually they're a little more on top of it, right? They have less to worry about in most cases. They don't have to sit in school or do homework or write papers. They're professional athletes and this is their job. But especially at the high school and college levels, you see guys totally just bastardize all of their training and work that they've put in with a bad weight cut, and it shows on the mat, and they just like do not look like themselves. And it's really easy to pick out, even just for like a regular spectator. You don't have to be an expert on the subject to be like, wow, that guy looked really good last week, and now he looks terrible. Like, what is happening? He looks like half the person he is. So and that's one thing that we do really well is we are able to help these guys dial in their nutrition, and we tailor it to their weight, and we can help them with their weight cuts a lot with the protocols that Coach Cal has set in place, and then obviously we're building upon every day and learning and improving. But I got Mark was a project. He came to me, I don't think he'll mind me using his name, but for 2 fights ago, he came to me. It was like 169, and he had to make 140. It was a catch weight, and I think he had 8 or 9 weeks to do it. And we went through the whole process, all the testing, got his numbers, set him up with a nutritional plan, figured out exactly what foods he was going to eat. He was sending me photos of his food, his meal prep, all of it. And I was working with him pretty much hand in hand, and we got him down to weight. And he was like, yeah, it was tough. The last couple of pounds are always tough when you're that big. But we used a hypersaturation to get him there, which is all run through the software. And he felt great. He was able to fight. And, that was, I was still in Ithaca at the time. I think me and my buddy drove down to Atlantic City. We got there like 10 minutes before his fight, and then he won. We drove right back home. So it was awesome to be there for it. But yeah, he's done a great job. And back to the question, it's a huge thing, the nutrition, and you want to leave no stone unturned is what we always say. And if you can just control that little bit of, it really doesn't take a whole lot. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know, right? But once you have that knowledge and you're able to put it into place, then it kind of is just more about will and determination and, willpower more than anything, really, and just putting the fuel in your body that you need with really nothing extra and sticking to the path and getting where you need to be for fight day or competition day, whatever you have.
You talked about living the lifestyle before and how you don't cheat that much. Can you just talk about how much a cheat can kind of destroy everything you've been doing prior to that cheat?
Yeah. So especially, I would say I feel it more now because I am so strict with everything. When if say I do have something that's, not on the plan, I'll feel it, I feel it immediately, like in my fingers, my ankles will swell up. I'm like such a baby now when it comes to that stuff. Right. So it's like a, it's like a funny duality, right? Because you're so dialed in, and then you like do one little thing wrong and you become the biggest puss of all time. And it's funny too. So I have a 2-year-old daughter, and obviously she just kind of eats what we don't have anything in the house that's not on the plan. And then she'll go with my in-laws and they'll give her like ice cream and Oreos, and she'll come back and have like diarrhea and pimples all over her face, and we're like, she's the same way as we are now. So we can't, I really can't like handle it. And it makes you feel so bad that you're like, this 10 seconds of enjoyment is just not worth it at all. I'm not even going to bother.
Are you doing macros? Are you doing meal plans for the athletes as well too?
Yeah. So when I do initial consultations with them, I'll give them their macro percentage breakdown, exact numbers. And then it's very focused on our micronutrients as well. And then based on deficiencies or whatever we see with toxicities, also with the hair analysis and then the labs that they're doing, we'll tailor that meal plan to try to balance out and kind of get back to that homeostasis. So, some guys will be eating more of one food as opposed to another, and some guys will be avoiding certain things, and some guys will be, really high fat, and some guys will be higher carbs, lower fat. With athletes, we always try to stay pretty high with our protein to make sure we're recovering from our workouts. But, the carbohydrates and fat can be different, and obviously, overall calories, but then our micronutrients and supplementation differ widely from athlete to athlete.
Are you looking for like 1.5 grams per pound or 2, depending on the size of the athlete?
Yeah, depending on the size of the athlete and kind of what their goals are. So, obviously if a guy's trying to lose some weight, that might come down a little bit. If a guy's putting weight on, we might jack that way up. It all just depends. I work with guys that are, wrestling heavyweight, and I work with guys that are cutting down to 125. So all over the map.
Yeah. What do you recommend for someone with high iron?
That's a good question. I got a textbook right here that I gotta look at, and it's actually funny too, right? So you may show high iron on your blood test, but like a hair analysis could show something completely different. Mm-hmm. So blood work, it's like a little snapshot, whereas hair analysis, that hair took like 3-4 months to grow, and it contains a whole lot of information. So it could be, widely different or vastly different from what you're seeing in just like a snapshot, when you get your blood drawn. So we always recommend hair analysis first, and then we look at the blood work and do some different analysis that way. But I have my handy notebook that I'll go through on every single hair analysis that I do. And, we run it through our software as well. I'll do my own analysis on it and kind of compare and contrast and see what we figure out. And, there's a bunch of different strategies, but yeah, I'd have to see a hair analysis and some blood work to make any recommendations.
Well, I know it may not look it, but this hair took longer than 3 months to grow. It's I'm 49 and it's I just started growing it back out, but I did just get blood work done. Is the hair stuff, is that something you guys do, like maybe not exclusively, but I've never, I've gone to a couple different doctors down here in South Carolina and Oklahoma and in New Jersey as well, but no one has ever said, hey, we need to do a hair sample.
Yeah, I think it's less common, probably because it takes longer and the analysis is, you can't just like print it out on a sheet and hand it to somebody and be like, all right, these are, this is what you got. It's a lot more in depth. It takes a lot more work. And there's a lot more like contraindications. So, one mineral being high can throw off a reading of another. So there's just a ton that can go into it. But I would probably say because it just takes a little more time and a little more effort. But I think some of the, top performance specialists are definitely focused on doing hair rather than exclusively blood.
Okay.
Can I send you a lock or do I have to be in person?
No, good. We do all the time. I have some kits right next to me here. We'll send them out to people. Basically, it'll give you instructions. You have like this little paper scale that you fold up. When you have enough on it, it tips over. You just put it in the envelope, send it out to the lab. It's not our lab. It's I think the lab's located down in Texas. It's called Trace Elements. And they send us back the results and we'll do our own analysis on it. Usually I do consultations. It takes a while. It takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours of Zoom call to go through with, one client. And then from there, we'll recommend certain things. Obviously we're focused on whole foods first and then supplements based on those results specifically. So, your results or your results kind of dictate what supplements are recommended for you and what doses. And, so I've had people who have ordered, had to have 10 different supplements. And I've had people who, only have to have 2 supplements to kind of balance things out. So it's definitely very individualized and it's really hard to find, I think, anything that kind of matches it.
Good. I got to comb up in the bathroom. I can pick some hair out for you.
I don't think you can send them old hair. I think it has to be fairly new.
Yeah, I think it's only a couple days.
You're going to have to overnight it.
There you go.
Put it on ice.
And we've had bald people use like chest hair or pubic hair also. So you have a bunch of different options.
I hope they tell you that before they send it to you, though.
Oh, yeah, it's all in there. I don't touch any of it.
Frank, are there any supplements that you find most people are using, or is it so specific for each person?
No, I think one thing, especially for athletes, that we always recommend are going to be our essential amino acids. I think that's a big thing people are missing. It's really hard to come by, to get the full spectrum that an athlete would need to recover. So almost immediately, Treigning Lab produces a supplement called it's like their 21 blend, and it's essential amino acids. And almost everyone that we see, we immediately, recommend taking that. And I remember the first time that Coach Cal recommended it to me and I took them, I felt like, night and day difference really, really quick. So that's one. I think another one that's pretty common would be like a krill oil, some sort of omega-3 that usually people are pretty deficient on.
So I was scanning your Instagram and saw some epic stuff, but I saw that you had a cold press juice that is like essential Treigning Lab secret. Can you give us the recipe? I got a cold press sitting right now.
I'll send you the recipe.
All
It's
right.
don't tell Coach Cal though.
All right.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening. Don't worry.
No, it's a recipe that he developed, and I've been religious about it, basically daily. My wife, when she was pregnant with our daughter, I made her drink it every day, and she had a very easy pregnancy, so we don't completely attributed to that, but I know TJ Dillashaw had, him and his wife were having trouble conceiving, and Coach Cal claims that the juice was the elixir that made it happen. So I know he's got a son that's like 5 or 6 or probably even older now. I don't even know. But
obviously Coach Cal and David have their relationship. They've worked together for a long time. Was that kind of the onus of bringing the training lab to Stillwater?
No. So I actually moved here right after I left Cornell. So I moved here in 2014, and I moved here to train with a guy named Coleman Scott, Olympic bronze medalist, and he's actually living here in town as well now. And so he, when I first moved to town, I didn't know anybody. He introduced me to his babysitter for his daughter, who I think was 2 at the time, who now I actually just finished training in the garage. So that's how I met my wife. I ended up marrying.
You got an Okie, huh?
Marrying the babysitter. So she was born and raised here. So we ended up, she's an attorney now. She works with her dad and her brother in town. We had the kind of opportunity to get back here, let her kind of do her thing. And obviously, my situation was a little easier. I could bring this with me, and obviously there's a market for it. So yeah, kind of some circumstances outside of the David Taylor, Coach Cal thing, but it just ended up working out like that.
Right on.
Frank, we know the craziness of the garage, Coach Cal, and making MMA fighters throw up. I know Juan Archuleta, and I follow him and see all the crazy stuff they do. How much of your training is strength training, and how much is a little bit of strength training and conditioning as well?
So we definitely focus a lot on strength training. Coach Cal is a master, and I've learned a ton from him on that aspect of being able to combine the two. And it's for different people, it's different things, and not only that, it's different times. Whether they're preparing for a fight or it's a building phase, and so it could look much different at different times of the year for the athlete, or for different sports as well. So, but yeah, right now, for instance, we're preparing for the World Championships. Roman Bravo Young is a guy that's been coming in the garage, and I've been working with him since I moved here. And him and both Trent Hidley are my two athletes that are headed to the World Championships in about a month, or a little less than a month now. So we see a lot of those. Those are going to start slowing down and tapering down a little bit, but the last couple of weeks for those guys have been like really hard charging, those crazy kind of workouts that you see in videos from the garage, and guys throwing up and things like that. And those guys have handled it like champs, and I think they're both ready to make a run at world titles, honestly.
Have you gotten Trent off the hoagies?
I tried. I don't know if I could. He's got to hide it from me, though. I don't know.
He got a Jersey Mike sponsorship?
Yeah, he should. He's an awesome dude. I did not know Trent at all. I was friends with Gwiz. Obviously, I was his coach, and he was close with Trent. I think he's who kind of recommended him to me. And I work with Isaac Trumbull, who's another NC State guy, and I think he was kind of in Trent's here as well. So in March, me and my wife moved here in February, and Trent was our first guest at our house, stay at our house. So he, I'd never met him. I told him come out, get his testing done. He stayed in our guest room, and he's an awesome dude. Super happy to have him on board. But yeah, really, really happy for him. I think he's put himself in a really good spot. The World Championships, and when he came out, he just told me he was kind of in a similar position that I was at the time I started working with Coach Cal. So that was a pretty cool thing. He was just trying to figure it out on his own and kind of throwing shit at the wall and see what stuck, and decided to get a real system in, and I think it's worked out well for him.
And when are Worlds?
He wrestles September 14th and 15th.
Okay.
Both of them do, actually. Roman and Trent. Me, my wife, and my daughter are all going out to Croatia to go support. So it should be a fun trip.
Yeah. Have you ever been?
I did. I brought I think Croatia. I was with I brought Nick Gwizdowski out there for a ranking series a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I think. Okay. So it's cool spot in Zagreb.
Yeah, some good beaches there.
We're stopping at Split. We're stopping in Split like for 2 days and then going to the wrestling. So we're making a little trip out of it.
Nice. And I would imagine with your dietary practices and stuff, you haven't made a trip to Eskimo Joe's yet?
I have never been to Eskimo Joe's.
Okay.
No. I may get shot if that gets out, but no, I have never been.
Do you have a cowboy hat?
I do not. I've fought it hard. When I first moved here, everyone's like, "When are you getting boots? When are you getting a hat?" I was like, "No, freaking tank top and jean shorts," and I'm calling it good.
No boots either?
No,
okay.
Not me.
So I guess there's no belt buckle either.
No, none of that. Board shorts, yeah.
Jersey for life.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Frank, we could talk to you all night, but we want to be super respectful of your time. So, Rich, do you have another question for Frank, or you want to get in the Final Four?
No, I'm good. No tornadoes this spring, right?
No, we had a couple scares. We had a wildfire that was on the other side of town, so my in-laws ended up getting evacuated over here. But we were good. We were good, lucky.
You got a shelter?
No, I need one, but we got a place to go. We can get to one pretty quick, but we got a space in the garage. I need to just move some weights and put one in there.
Yeah. When I first moved there, I was like first or second day at work. The guy I worked with, he's like, you got a shelter at your place? I was like, no. He's like, all right, here's what you're going to do. If I get a tornado, he's like, you're going to get your mattress. You're going to bring it into the bathroom. You're going to get in the tub and you're going to put the mattress over the tub.
Yep.
I was like, okay, good to know.
I know. I'm like, if it happens, I'm just going to sit there and just take it. Whatever happens.
Frank, is there anything about your coaching services, Treigning Lab Oklahoma, that we haven't spoken about that you want our audience to know?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot, and if there are any individuals out there that are serious about it, just feel free to reach out to me on my website. You can find that link through my Instagram. It's traininglab_OK, and anytime, just reach out, and I'll definitely get back to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. So, first Final Four question I have for you: are you a coffee drinker?
I just became a coffee drinker. We got a really fancy espresso machine for our wedding. So I never drank coffee before that. So now just because we have it, I do a shot of espresso in the morning. I don't mind it. I don't love the taste. But I kind of just put it down just because it's there. And now it's become like a little ritual. We do some, organic, microtoxin free, all crazy. It's called like a Life Boost. We just switched from Ben Greenfield's coffee to Life Boost. So yeah, my wife really likes it. So I don't know. I think I like the ritual of like making the espresso more than I actually like the taste.
Okay. It'll grow on you.
Yeah.
Frank, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Frank Perrelli?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wake up at 4:00 every day. I know it sounds crazy. I immediately put on my chest strap. I still do my morning daily readings through the Treigning Lab app, and I can kind of monitor my recovery. Throw on my compression boots with some red light. Kind of listen to a couple podcasts that I listen to every morning. Do some readings, some journal entry type of stuff. And then I make my whole slew of drinks, finish it off with coffee, and then I get out in the garage and just get after it. By about 5:00, we have Coleman Scott's here every morning. We have a couple guys that filter in, so there could be anywhere from me and Coleman to 4 or 5 other guys in the garage, all grinding it out at 5:00. So it's pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Frank, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
So I kind of am always listening to podcasts, just constantly have podcasts on. I actually was mowing the lawn, getting ready for this one. And, I listened to your guys' podcast with Paul Check, which was awesome. I did, HLC level 1 a couple years ago, just on my own. I was an athlete. I was like, I really like what Paul Chek teaches, so I decided to do it. So I think I just finished up his podcast. What am I listening to right now? Let me look real quick. I had one going. It's never fun stuff, and people think I'm crazy because I'll listen to podcasts while I'm working out. The Energy Balance Podcast. So always trying to learn some stuff.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate you checking that one out.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We were nervous for that one.
Yeah, I can imagine. He's an intimidating guy.
And I think we tried for like, I don't know how long to get him, and he finally came and joined us. So
hey, persistence. I love it.
Yeah, that was the main thing. He said his wife Penny was like, you guys are persistent. Because she'd be like, he's busy, reach back out in like a year. And Jimmy would did that for like 3 or 4 years. And he finally was like, all right, these guys are not going to stop. So
that's right. That's how you get it. I love it.
Last one we got for you, Frank, is a lighthearted one to close it out. I'm curious if there is one. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure, man. Me and my wife, we don't watch much TV, especially now with my daughter. She kind of occupies a lot of our time, and in the evenings we all hang out as a family and mess around. But we watch this really dumb. We watch some really bad competition TV shows. So every year we take we kind of take a hour every Friday night. I think it comes out. It's called The British Baking Show, and it's so bad and so stupid, but for some reason we like it. It's a little time that we kind of set aside in those months that it comes out, and we watch that one. So I would say I'm pretty embarrassed to say that I actually do watch that show, but yeah, we watch that one.
We've had a couple TV watchers, reality shows or whatever it may be. So
no real. I guess that is kind of reality, but more competition.
Yeah, competition. I mean, we've heard it all. As a former wrestler, we find former wrestlers take up golf. Have you ever swung a golf club? You get on the links at all?
No. So there's a couple things that I just kind of refuse to do. So I've never even attempted golf because I'm afraid that I will get way too addicted and it'll take up too much of my time. So I'm not dabbling at all.
Respect.
Yeah.
Frank, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir. It's been awesome following your journey as a wrestler and everything you got on as a coach. It's awesome to chat with you tonight. We could talk to you all night. So thank you so much.
Yeah, guys, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, Frank, it's great to get to chat with you and get to meet you, and have fun in Croatia, and good luck with everything you got going on in Oklahoma. We're excited to follow.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Frank Perrelli from the Treigning Lab Oklahoma. That is it for us this week. We appreciate you checking us out. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. We will be back on Monday night with Sean Robinson is going to be joining us from Drew University Track and Field and Cross Country. And Isaac Wood is back. Remember him from Salt Lake Community College. He's back in the Division I ranks with the Pacific University, taking over starting the men's program there. So we're excited